Chapter 41, New System Features. Weekly Intelligence 1, the Jinling Community Demolition Plan will be announced on Friday. Old Wang, instigated by streamer Yu, will come to demand demolition compensation. Legal measures have limited effect against a scoundrel. Please use trickery to defeat trickery. Old Wang. Lin Yang remembered him well. When news first leaked that Jinling Community would be demolished, Lin Yang had rushed to the real estate agency and snapped up several properties, one of which had been owned by Old Wang. Lin Yang had meant to bargain, but before he could open his mouth, Old Wang had cut his own price, letting Lin Yang buy into the project at below-market rates. Word had it, Old Wang was desperate to impress a female streamer he liked. If he could help her win a PK that night, she'd become his girlfriend. It had been more than a week. Lin Yang wondered whether Old Wang's plan had worked. The last time they'd met, Lin Yang had only thought the man muddled, not malicious. After all, the money was his to spend. But now he learned the truth. Old Wang had sold the house, pocketed the cash, signed the contract, and still had the nerve to come knocking for demolition compensation. Envy and regret over selling at the wrong time were understandable. Showing up to cause trouble at his door was not. And the streamer, who had rallied him into this, had the audacity to set her sights on him. Lin Yang's mind started arranging plans. He would make them both regret it. Weekly Intelligence 2, the last imported Maybach S580 at the Zhongnan Automobile World. Maybach 4S store was advertised with 20-inch wheels but delivered with 19-inch wheels. Collect the customs declarations, shipping records, and in-store inspection reports for this car in advance to form a complete evidence chain. This will allow a refund plus 3 times compensation. Lin Yang knew Maybach was a luxury brand, though he couldn't name every model. Even so, a Maybach had to cost at least over $1,000,000 yuan. A refund plus 3 times compensation meant if the car cost $1 million, you'd get the $1 million back and a further $3 million in damages. He wasn't going to pass up having money handed to him. He'd go check the store later. This weekly intelligence really beat the daily feed. Each item carried weight. No more useless bargain alerts or trivial coupons. Week Intelligence 3. Hainan Island is experiencing a cold snap, suppressing chili pepper output. Wholesale prices have hit a new high. Stocking up in advance could be very profitable. He'd seen warnings about chili price hikes before. Now the market was already volatile. With the weather changing, speculating here was risky. One bad move and you could lose everything. He made a note and kept reading. Weekly Intelligence 4. At 3 p.m. on Wednesday, Chen Zhengguo will suffer a sudden myocardial infarction and collapse while jogging in Binjiang Financial Park. Providing timely assistance may earn his favor. Chen Zhengguo, an unfamiliar name. If the system's pushes were relevant to him, he should at least have some connection to this man. Lin Yang searched his phone. Name, Chen Zhengguo. Male, 68. Chairman of Runhe International Group. Developer of Xing City's most luxurious residential area, Binjiang Bay. Owner of multiple shopping malls, assets in the tens of billions. A big boss, then, probably not someone he normally rubbed shoulders with. But why did he appear in the intelligence list? The only link Lin Yang could think of was Hu Qian, the stock advisor they both used. Saving a billionaire chairman would be a favor worth cultivating, one that could open doors later. He filed the information away. Daily Intelligence 5. Xing City will see heavy rainfall this weekend, with standing water exceeding 2 meters in many urban areas. Please take precautions. 2 meters of standing water. A regular small car would be submerged. People could face life-threatening danger. Not flashy, but invaluable. Avoiding mortal danger was priceless. Daily Intelligence 6. Hu Qian, age 26, native of Xing City, graduated from Southern China University with a degree in finance. Height 1.68 meters, weight 98 jin, blood type A, measurements, home address, Yunda Plaza, phone number 135. Another personal intelligence entry. The weekly intelligence system pushed 6 pieces for the week. Reading each piece granted 100 experience points. 3,000 experience was required to upgrade the system to the monthly intelligence tier. He'd received 4 pieces the first week and 6 this week, 10 total, earning 1,000 experience points so far. That left 2,000 points to go. The system pushed 3 to 10 items per week. In the best case, the upgrade could come in 2 more weeks, in the worst case, after 7. Upgrading meant higher value intelligence. Each item could be worth millions, and sometimes tens of millions or more. Lin Yang noticed the last personal intelligence, about Hu Qian, was displayed in a different color from the others, the same as the Chen Qingqing entry he'd seen before. He tapped it. Like before, an inner page opened. Congratulations, you have received personal intelligence. Dating and having dinner with the person named in this entry will trigger a critical hit, guaranteed to unlock a new random system function. He hadn't expected that. Besides upgrading the system and increasing the quality of the intelligence, personal contacts could unlock new functions. Random, but powerful. What would the unlocked function do? He didn't know yet. He also remembered the earlier personal entry, with Chen Qingqing, whose memory had faded over many years. Simply making contact could trigger a critical hit. With Hu Qian, whom he'd only known 2 days but already eaten and shopped with, the condition was stricter, a date and dinner. It seemed the system adjusted the trigger conditions according to the depth of his relationship with the person. Lin Yang smirked inwardly. His past poverty had kept most relationships shallow, useful now, since looser ties meant easier triggers. He stopped the unnecessary train of thought. Unlocking a new system function was the priority. He picked up his phone and started composing a message to Hu Qian, an invitation to dinner. Chapter 42, It's You. Hu Qian was alone in her minimalist, spacious luxury apartment. The light gray marble floor had a soft sheen that complemented the snow-white walls. There were no ornate decorations, just a few abstract paintings for a touch of artistry. Simple linear lights in the ceiling gave a warm, gentle glow that made the space feel open and bright. A treadmill stood silently by the window. She wore tight sportswear that showed off her figure. After a few hurried, chaotic steps on the treadmill, she shut it off in irritation, chest heaving, sweat beading on her forehead and cheek. In the kitchen, she grabbed a bottle of ice water from the fridge and drank deeply, trying to douse the unease she couldn't explain. The water helped, but did not banish the restlessness. Her brows knit tightly as she muttered to herself, how could this be? Ever since she'd taken Lin Yang to dinner and shopping, his image had lodged in her mind and kept returning. She tried to focus on other things, but her thoughts drifted back to him again and again. She picked up her phone and began to type, then stopped. We've only known each other 1 day, she thought. This would be too forward. After a moment's hesitation, she called Zhang instead. Junior, the weather's perfect today. Want to go camping and have a barbecue this afternoon? She tried to sound casual, but her hand clenched around the phone. Sure, came Zhang lively reply. Outings are more fun with more people. Why don't we invite 2 more? Her heart skipped. That was exactly what she'd hoped for. A smile slipped across her face and her eyes brightened. I have gear for 4. Invite your classmate Lin Yang, and I'll invite 1 more. Got it. I'll get the ingredients. Call me when it's time to go. After she hung up, Hu Qian sank onto the sofa, smiling. She pictured Lin Yang and the outing they might share. The thought was sweet and calming. She stood and gazed out at the clear blue sky and drifting clouds, imagining laughter in the countryside, and felt her agitation ease. Meanwhile, Lin Yang had been thinking about how to ask Hu Qian to go out when his phone rang. Zhang name appeared on the screen. They hadn't been close before, but after Lin Yang applied for a loan at Zhang bank, their contact had increased. Zhang had helped him find a stock consultant, and they'd grown more familiar. When he learned they were going camping with Hu Qian and friends, Lin Yang's eyes lit up. It was perfect timing. He needed to have dinner with Hu Qian to trigger a critical hit and unlock new system functions. He did have plans that morning, though, so he told Zhang to go ahead and send him the address when they arrived. Before heading to the campsite, Lin Yang had another important errand. He planned to buy a Maybach S580 under a buy-one-get-3 promotion he couldn't refuse. After a quick breakfast by the community entrance, he drove to the Maybach 4S store in Zhongnan Automobile World. The showroom was busy when a massive, tank-like looking-up U8 pulled up at the entrance. The sales staff immediately noticed it, and their faces brightened. People who drove such cars were either very wealthy or socially prominent, customers who loved new tech and high-end brands. If someone could afford a U8 as a toy, selling them a Maybach would be child's play. The salespeople rushed to the doors, eager to be first, lining up on both sides and calling out in unison, "Welcome to Maybach!" Lin Yang was slightly amused. He stepped out of the U8 and looked around. It was early and there were no other customers in sight. Was such a warm welcome really for him? It turned out it was. A tall, attractive woman stepped forward with a perfect, professional smile. "Hello, sir. Welcome to our Maybach 4S store. I'm Liu Dan, your sales consultant. How can I help you?" She bowed slightly, her gestures elegant and practiced. Another male salesperson joined in, extolling the models and their performance. Several others hovered at a respectful distance, ready to help, occasionally mentioning promotions and after-sales service. All of them watched Lin Yang intently, trying to read his reaction. Their enthusiasm was obvious. There was a lot of commission on the line. If they only knew he was here for the buy one get three promotion, Lin Yang thought, they'd be in for a surprise. Everyone was smiling and flattering him. Everyone, that is, except one woman in her 30s. The moment she saw his face, her smile dropped and contempt clouded her expression. Lin Yang returned the look with an easy smile, then pointed at her and said, "You, take me to see the car." The room fell silent. They had all been vying to serve him, yet he'd chosen the one salesperson who'd shown him disdain. The woman's face, Liu, remained sullen, and the question in everyone's eyes was clear. Why would this gentleman pick her? Chapter 43. Because you're the most annoying, so I choose you. Liu froze, eyes hard with contempt, her mind drifting back a year. Her cousin Li Xiaojia had once shown her a photo of Lin Yang with star-bright eyes and sword-like brows, so handsome he seemed unreal. Li Xiaojia had gushed about every step of pursuing him. After half a year, she'd finally won him over. The relationship didn't last. Lin Yang was too poor to even afford a decent gift, so she'd broken it off. In Li Yue's view, no one could go from poverty to wealth in 6 months. The cheapest car in the 4S dealer cost over $1 million, and anyone who could buy one must have assets worth tens of millions. Lin Yang, she was sure, couldn't possibly afford anything here. When she'd seen him step out of a Yang Wang U8, her first reaction had been shock. She couldn't reconcile the luxury car driver with the penniless kid she remembered. But she quickly decided he must have rented the car or hitched a ride with a rich woman here just to show off. That assumption fueled her dislike. So when he specifically asked to be shown a car, her disdain hardened into irritation. "Sir, why don't you let someone else show you the car?" she asked, frowning, her tone resistant. She'd rather handle customers who could actually buy and earn a commission. "No, just you," Lin Yang said calmly, a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. He knew the more unwilling she was, the better her reaction would be when the time came for his Refund 1, Compensate 3 plan. He'd chosen the most annoying salesperson on purpose. When a car didn't match its description, the salesperson who sold it would likely be implicated too. With no way to refuse openly, Liu forced a brittle smile and relented, grumbling silently as she led him to the display area. She kept her pace slow, determined to go through the motions. "This S180 is the cheapest in our store," she offered, standing beside it. "On the road, it's about 1 million. Lin Yang smiled slightly. So that was her attitude. She'd marked him poor and was steering him to the least expensive model. If he truly intended to buy, he'd have left already. But he had another purpose, to trigger the refund and compensation claim. "That one over there looks better," he said, pointing to the S580 in the middle of the showroom. Liu brushed her lips into another reluctant smile and led him over. She launched into the standard spiel, voice flat and without enthusiasm. "This is the S580, an original imported sedan, a favorite among successful customers." Lin Yang slowly walked around the car, touching the body here and there, inspecting details as if genuinely interested. He glanced at the wheels and, in his head, ticked them off. 19 inches, definitely. Liu watched, sneering inwardly. Poor kid, wanting an S580. It was nearly 3.5 million on the road. He couldn't possibly afford it. She couldn't hold it back and deliberately raised her voice to make the point. "The S580 is an imported model, very expensive, over 3 million. The implication was clear. This car was far beyond him. Lin Yang understood the jibe and let her mockery slide. He'd already planned every step. To win the refund one, compensate three case, he needed three pieces of evidence: the customs declaration, the shipping records, and the in-store inspection records. With those, he could sue the dealership for misrepresenting the car and demand compensation. He had to be precise and careful. He looked up and caught Li Yue's eyes. "I've heard some 4S shops secretly replace parts on imported cars. Your dealership wouldn't do that, would it?" The question sounded casual, but carried a sting. Li Yue's expression tightened. She felt as if he was deliberately provoking her. She snapped back, tone sharp and defensive. "We're not a roadside stall. All the Maybach 4S stores in the province belong to our boss. We have every customs declaration, every shipping record, every in-store inspection report, all original imports. You don't need to worry." "All right, then I'll take this one," Lin Yang said without hesitation. Those words hit Li Yue like a bomb. Her eyes widened, disbelief and shock written across her face. "What? Are you sure you really want this one?" she stammered, voice going up several decibels. In her mind, he was still the pauper from before. There was no way he could afford a car worth over 3 million. Maybe she'd misheard. Lin Yang watched her, amused at her reaction, and nodded. "Confirmed, I'll buy this one." Li Yue stood frozen, her thoughts a tangle of disbelief. She had no idea how Lin Yang could buy that car so decisively. Still, since he'd said he would, she kept her doubts to herself and went to fetch the contract, her steps uneven as she nearly tripped over a nearby display stand. As she walked, suspicion churned in her mind. Maybe Lin Yang was playing some trick, couldn't afford it, and was just showing off, only to back out during signing with a dozen excuses. Reinforcing that possibility steadied her. She decided to play along and see what would happen next. She hurried back with the paperwork and set it down on the table, her tone edged with skepticism. "Please look over the contract. The S580 Collection Edition is 2.84 million, and with optional accessories and VAT, the total is 3.489 million. If everything's in order, you can sign." Lin Yang took the contract and read it slowly and deliberately, scrutinizing each clause, especially the vehicle configuration details. Those terms would determine whether his plan to claim triple compensation could succeed, so he couldn't afford to miss anything. If the clauses were wrong and he couldn't get triple compensation, the dealership would profit and Leo would earn a fat commission. Leo watched him, eager for the moment he'd be embarrassed for not having the money. After a few minutes, Lin Yang set the contract down, picked up a pen, and signed without hesitation. "All right, it's signed," he said, smiling faintly. Li Yue's heart leapt. She hadn't expected him to follow through, but she still clung to a shred of hope that he'd sign and then fail to pay. She presented the POS terminal and asked, forcing a composed tone, "Sir, how would you like to pay?" Lin Yang pulled a Xing City bank card from his pocket and handed it to her. "Card swipe," he said calmly. Her hands shaking slightly, Li Yue fed the card into the terminal, entered the amount, and pressed confirm. A few seconds later, the machine chimed, "Transaction successful." Li Yue's vision blurred and she swayed. He actually had the money. Her earlier judgment had been completely wrong. He had hidden his background from Li Xiaojia. He was a rich second generation. Li Xiaojia had missed out. Her attitude flipped instantly. A bright, eager smile spread across her face, more ingratiating than she'd shown to any important client. "Mr. Lin, you have excellent taste. The S580 suits you perfectly," she cooed, her voice syrupy with flattery. "I'll take care of all the follow-up procedures. If you need anything, contact me anytime." She pushed documents toward him and smoothed her hair, determined to leave a good impression. Lin Yang watched the sudden transformation with quiet amusement. Money, he thought, changes everything. But he didn't care about her demeanor. His focus was on securing that triple compensation. If his plan worked, he wouldn't just return the car, he'd walk away with 3 times the sale price. At a sale price of 2.84 million, that would be 8.52 million. He wondered if Li Yue would still be smiling then. "There's only one S580 Collection Edition left in stock. Would you like to take it today?" Leo asked. "I'll pick it up today," Lin Yang replied. She beamed and brought the forms over, then led him to inspect the car. Her steps were light and her explanations breezy, as if he were an old friend. The model in the showroom was the last one. Li Rui guided them straight to it. Despite the smile plastered on her face, a flicker of nervousness betrayed Li Yue. Lin Yang began a careful inspection. This wasn't just routine. Every detail mattered for his compensation claim. He checked the car against the paperwork, customs declarations, shipping records, the dealership's inspection certificate. Everything matched. Satisfied, he looked up and said, "No problem, sign." Hearing that, Li Yue felt the tension leave her. "Mr. Lin, you're so meticulous. You're the most careful buyer I've ever had," she said, handing him a pen. He signed the inspection form. Contracts and procedures were completed one by one. Once he had the vehicle registration certificate, the car would be completely his. Lin Yang's eyes glowed with anticipation. He could already picture the moment he'd demand triple compensation. Then Li Yu's expression softened apologetically. "Mr. Lin, I'm really sorry. The vehicle registration certificate is with the bank right now. But don't worry, I'll retrieve it within 3 days and deliver it to you personally." Lin Yang nodded, calm and steady. "Okay, leave the car here for now. I'll take it once I have the registration certificate." After giving those instructions, he turned and left with steady steps. Once he was gone, Li Yue was a different person. She pulled out her phone and sent a rapid WeChat message to her cousin Li Xiaojia. "Your ex, Lin Yang, the one you looked down on for being poor, just bought a Maybach worth millions without blinking. You misjudged him." She leaned back, smiling. Selling a $1 million luxury car so easily meant a hefty bonus this month. Lin Yang had deliberately left the car at the dealership to prepare for his compensation claim. If he'd driven it away and later claimed an issue like an incorrect wheel hub, the dealership could claim he'd swapped parts himself. By leaving it on their premises, he removed that excuse. A store that sold inferior goods as superior deserved to suffer a little. And perhaps Li Rui, who'd looked down on customers, needed the lesson. He could already picture their faces when he demanded 3 times the sale price. Meanwhile, he had another appointment to keep. "Xiaodi, navigate to Wofengyun Farm," he said as he climbed into the SUV. Hu Qian was already there. A date and dinner with her would trigger a critical hit and unlock a new system function. He was impatient to see what it would do. With a press of the accelerator, the SUV surged forward and they sped off. Chapter 45, A Way to Have a Baby Without Arguing Over the Surname. In Qing City, there was a charming camping spot called Wofengjuan Farm. The Jingjiang River flowed gently in front of it, and on the wide riverbank, wild green grass spread like a natural carpet. Across the water, a line of high mountains rose majestically, watching the river slip by beneath them. Mountains and water woven into a picture-perfect scene. Every weekend, the place turned into a sea of pleasure, crowds streaming in to camp. This time, Hu Qian, Zhang Jun, and Hu Qian's childhood friend Lin Shi had agreed to come together. The 3 of them rode in the same car, laughing all the way until they reached the farm. Dozens of cars were already parked along the river. The roadside was even busier. Canopies and tents were set up in staggered rows like a temporary village. Hundreds of people, old and young, lounged under awnings eating fresh fruit, dozed in tents soaking up the warm sun, while children chased one another along the bank, making the most of the day. "I'll bring the canopy, the folding table, the chairs, and the grill down to the riverbank," Xingjun said, hoisting a backpack almost as tall as he was. "You two can take the food out of the trunk." He headed down a narrow path toward the water, threading his way through the improvised village, eyes scanning for a clear spot to set up. Just then, an off-road vehicle thundered past him, its engine drawing every head. On the uneven, potholed bank, the heavy SUV rolled as smoothly as if on pavement. "So cool," Zhang Jun couldn't help exclaiming. Men always had a soft spot for off-roaders, and when he realized it was a Land Rover, a dream car he'd Googled obsessively, envy lit his face. He knew the specs by heart. It was a pity it cost nearly $1 million. His admiration lasted less than a second. The Land Rover's wheels suddenly spun in the mud, spraying black muck everywhere. The driver fumbled with the gears, flustered, trying every trick he knew, but the car sank deeper. After Zhang Jun left, only Hu Qian and Lin Shi remained by the car. The sunlight lit their silhouettes. Hu Qian had a confident, mature air. Every movement hinted at composure and the charm of adulthood. Lin Shi was gentle and sweet, a smile that curved her eyes like a little white rabbit. Either of them would draw attention in a crowd. Together they turned heads. They opened the trunk and began unloading when, with a soft creak, a white Porsche rolled up beside them. The driver's window slid down and a handsome man in his 20s leaned out. Dressed casually but stylishly, he smiled with easy confidence. "Two beautiful ladies? Need some help moving that? I could give you a hand, and maybe we could camp together," he offered, hopeful, his gaze skimming them both. Hu Qian looked up and returned a polite smile, but her tone was firm. "No, my boyfriend will be here soon." "A shame. She's taken," the man said, disappointment flickering across his face before he smoothed it into a grin. He pulled back, tapped the gas, and the Porsche rumbled away. As the car receded, Lin Shi tugged Hu Qian's hand, curious. "Qian, when did you get a boyfriend? Since when? How come I never heard about him?" Hu Qian patted her friend's hand with an amused, helpless smile. "I don't have a boyfriend. I just wanted to get rid of that guy." Lin Shi frowned in puzzlement. But he was good-looking and drove a Porsche. What's not to like? Hu Qian's mind drifted to Lin Yang. His handsome face, quiet confidence, and that unique temperament had left a deep impression on her. Comparing the two, she couldn't help a dismissive tone. That kind of guy? Hardly boyfriend material. A hint of disdain flashed in her eyes. This Porsche driver was in a different league from Lin Yang, in her mind. Before Lin Shi could press the subject, an off-road vehicle rolled up and caught her attention. "Look, Yangwang U8, Off-Road Player Edition," she cried. The car eased to a stop in front of them. The door opened, revealing a face so striking Lin Shi went momentarily breathless. His features were sharp as if carved, eyes deep and bright, and the corners of his mouth lifted in an almost mischievous smile. He stepped out with calm assurance. Hu Qian laughed at Lin Shi's dazed expression and introduced them. "Shi, this is the other friend I told you about, Lin Yang." Lin Shi's cheeks flushed. She gave a flustered little smile. Then, with the blunt charm of someone who always spoke her mind, she added, "They're both surnamed Lin, so there won't be any arguing about what surname the children will have someday." Her casual remark hung in the air. For a moment, both Hu Qian and Lin Yang were stunned. "What did you just say?" Hu Qian blurted. "Shixi, you're too bold," Lin Yang said, half amused, half incredulous. Hearing Lin Yang and Hu Qian's exclamations, Lin Shi snapped back to herself. She laughed it off, saying it had been a joke to break the awkwardness. Hu Qian introduced her. "Lin Yang, this is my childhood friend Lin Shi. She's a dance teacher." Lin Yang greeted her warmly. "Hello." Lin Shi was mortified, stammering, "Hello, hello." She replayed her earlier words in her head and wished she could sink through the ground. Telling a man she had just met that she wanted his children was not a winning first impression. When she saw Lin Yang didn't seem to be leaving, she hastily grabbed a bag of fruit from the trunk and hurried toward the riverbank. Hu Qian smiled and told Lin Yang, "Don't mind her, she's like that." Lin Yang smiled and shook his head. "It's fine, she's cute." "By the way," Lin Yang asked, "the roadside back there was full of cars. Is there anywhere else to park nearby?" Hu Qian thought for a moment. "Drive a little farther. There's a fork that goes down to the riverbank. You can park there." "All right." Lin Yang returned to his car, started it, and drove off slowly. Lin Shi only dared come back when she saw him pull away. She grabbed Hu Qian's hand and whispered, "Qian, be honest. Have you fallen for Lin Yang?" "No way," Hu Qian protested. "I only met him a day earlier than you." Lin Shi frowned. "That's not how it looks. The way you look at him is different. You can't hide it from me." Hu Qian's face flushed. She quickly changed the subject. "Besides, you said you wanted to have kids with him." "That's different," Lin Shi protested. "Mine was just appreciation for a handsome guy." The two of them laughed as they unloaded things from the trunk, planning to move everything down to the riverbank. But when they reached the bank, Zhang Jun and their canopy were nowhere to be seen. Looking around, they spotted Zhang Jun across the riverbed, intently directing the rescue of an off-road vehicle stuck in the mud. The canopy wasn't there either. When they drew closer, it became clear why. The whole area was one big slick of mud. Ordinary cars hadn't dared to attempt a rescue, and the tow rope they had wasn't long enough, so the stuck driver was trying to get out under Zhang Jun's directions. Engines revved, tires spun, and flung black mud in broad arcs, but the vehicle barely budged. A group of onlookers began to comment. "Isn't that a Range Rover? How can it be stuck in such shallow mud?" A middle-aged man with a beer belly and an air of self-importance puffed up and announced, "This is a Range Rover SV, nearly 3 million, 4.4T, over 600 horsepower, not like those domestic junk cars." A younger man bristled at the remark. "If you want to boast about foreign cars, fine, but don't diss domestic ones when you're driving one yourself." He snapped, 600 horsepower, huh? Then why can't it even get one wheel out?" The middle-aged man's face went beet red. "How dare you? This mud is deep. Even a tank would struggle. The driver's a novice. He doesn't know how to control it." He gestured wildly as he spoke. Before he could keep talking, a bald man, the owner of the Range Rover, popped his head out of the car and, gold chain glinting at his neck, bellowed, "Who are you calling a novice? When I was learning to drive, you were still playing in the dirt with your pants down." The middle-aged man fell silent. Then someone pointed and shouted, "Look, isn't that the looking up U8? Heads turned. From the farther bank, an even bigger off-road vehicle rumbled onto the riverbed. It was massive, its heavy, rugged lines catching the sunlight. The metallic paint gleamed, the broad tires sat like anchors on the mud. The car looked like a war machine. "He's got over 1,000 horsepower, someone offered. "If that thing's here, it should be able to pull the Range Rover out." The stuck driver's eyes lit up. He climbed out, grabbed a carton of cigarettes from his trunk, and hurried toward the looking U8, hopeful. Nearby, people debated. "I don't know," a bespectacled young man said. "This mud is deep, and the Range Rover is in there solid. Even with all that horsepower, the U8 might not manage." An uncle in sportswear shook his head. "Hard to say." Others, however, were confident. "The U8 isn't ordinary. I heard it can even float if it has to. Pulling a Range Rover should be nothing." Among the murmurs, the middle-aged man sneered. "Domestic cars always exaggerate their specs. Just because it claims 1,000 horsepower, does it actually have it? If it comes over, it'll just be another car stuck in the mud." Lin Yang drove slowly along the winding path toward the riverbank. He found an open spot and parked. Almost immediately, the bald Range Rover owner approached with a beaming smile, gold chain and heavy rings catching the light. Dressed in conspicuous nouveau-rich finery, he shoved a carton of cigarettes toward Lin Yang. "Young man, could you help? My car's stuck in the mud and can't get out." He offered the carton eagerly. Lin Yang glanced at the brand, He Tianxia, recognized it as an expensive brand, about 2,000 yuan a carton. He raised an eyebrow but took the cigarettes. You don't turn down a smiling person, and the car he was driving had towing capability anyway. This would be a good test. "All right," Lin Yang said. "I'll give it a shot, but I can't promise success." Try it, the owner urged. Lin Yang started his engine and followed the owner toward the stuck vehicle. As they neared, the ground turned worse. Firm earth gave way to treacherous mud that made each step uncertain. The mud bulged under their shoes. It was easy to imagine a car sinking a wheel deeper with every inch. Lin Yang moved forward cautiously. The Range Rover's front left wheel was buried more than halfway in the muck. The churned mud around it looked like black quicksand, and the car leaned over, lopsided and forlorn. Lin Yang drove his vehicle onto the edge of the mud, and the instant the tires hit the slick, there was a soft gurgle. The wheels began to sink. He cursed under his breath. He had underestimated just how powerful this mud was. No sooner had Lin Yang's car inched into position than a ripple of laughter and snide commentary rose from the onlookers. The middle-aged man who had mocked domestic cars folded his arms and smirked triumphantly. "See, I told you those domestic junk cars wouldn't work. Now look, stuck!" Chapter 47, Back Home. Lin Yang didn't panic at the skeptical murmurs around him. He calmed himself and studied the buttons on the dashboard and center console. His eyes brightened when he spotted a button labeled Escape Mode. Hope surged through him. He pressed it decisively. The vehicle's electronics responded instantly, smartly redistributing power and torque. Lin Yang floored the accelerator. The engine growled low and fierce, like a sleeping beast awoken. The tires clawed and spun, the SUV surged forward, and mud and water flew everywhere. The crowd fell silent, stunned. The mocking voice that had been ridiculing domestic cars cut off mid-sentence and was replaced by astonished gasps. This! This is incredible! Lin Yang eased the Yangwang U8 closer to the stuck Land Rover. With about 4 or 5 meters between them, the tow rope was long enough. The Land Rover's owner hurriedly secured the rope to Lin Yang's tow hook, told Zhang Jun to guide the pull, and climbed back into his own car, gripping the wheel with tense anticipation. Lin Yang shifted into reverse and slowly applied the gas. The U8 moved back steadily until the tow rope went taut. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the Land Rover rocked, then in a few great heaves came free of the mud. Cheers and applause erupted. The Yangwang U8 is amazing. I've never seen a car get out of the mud like that. People couldn't stop praising the U8's power. A young man jumped up, excitement lighting his face. Over 1,000 horsepower, like a tank. A nearby uncle nodded, pride in his voice. For a domestic car to perform like this, it's really something. You just can't underestimate them anymore. Someone remembered the man who'd been sneering at domestic brands and looked around. He had already slunk away, too embarrassed to stay. Zhang Jun, who'd been directing the maneuver, stood staring at Lin Yang's U8 with a blank, envious expression. His dream car had just switched from a Land Rover to a Yangwang. He resolved then and there to save up and buy one someday. The owner of the Land Rover hurried over, gratitude written on his face. He grabbed Lin Yang's hand and shook it warmly. "Young man, thank you. I didn't know what I would have done without you. I have some connections in Xing City. If you ever have trouble, tell them you know me. I'll help." He added Lin Yang on WeChat with bright enthusiasm. Lin Yang agreed readily. More contacts meant more opportunities. As the man left, the crowd buzzed. "Did you see who that was? That's Brother Hu. Brother Hu is practically the underground king of Hexi. If we'd known it was Brother Hu, we'd have risked getting completely stuck to help." Their voices brimmed with awe and excitement. Lin Yang smiled to himself. He hadn't expected to have helped someone important. With that new favor in his pocket, he would likely face fewer troubles in Xing City. Back at his parking spot, he barely had time to step out before a group swarmed his Yangwang U8. A few girls gushed, their eyes shining. One, hair in a ponytail, ran a hand along the car's body. "You're so cool. The lines, the stance, it's incredible. I only ever saw the U8 online. It's even more imposing in person," another said. A bespectacled guy fumbled with his phone, snapping photo after photo, trying to capture every angle. A middle-aged man lingered, pride in his voice. "For our domestic industry to reach this level, this is something to be proud of. This isn't just a car, it's a symbol." Phones flashed. People kept exclaiming. Lin Yang locked the car and weaved through the crowd toward his friends. He found Hu Chan and the others and quickened his pace. "Hey, I'm here," he called. They waved back. "Finally! We've been waiting." They started dividing up tasks, setting up the canopy, arranging tables and chairs. Once everything was in place, Lin Yang picked up a lighter and fired up the charcoal. It flared and crackled, smoke curling up. Everyone gathered around, faces bright with anticipation. Barbecue time. Just as they were settling in, Lin Yang's phone rang. He saw Mom on the screen and smiled. He stepped aside to answer. "Hello, Mom. What's up?" Yang, didn't you say you'd be home in a few days? It's been more than 10 days now. When are you coming back?" Lin Yang tilted his head and looked toward the sky, thinking. The demolition notice for Jinling Community would be announced in a few days. Once he signed the papers, he could go home and wait for the demolition funds. If he went home now, he'd have to come back to Xing City later to sign. Too much hassle. He estimated he could be home by next week. "Mom, maybe next week at the earliest. I still have a few things to finish, but they're almost done. Don't worry." "Are you coming back alone or bringing someone? What about a girlfriend? Bring her so I can meet her." Lin Yang laughed. "No girlfriend, Mom. Don't overthink it. That last one was fake. She chased me for half a year, and it was a pain, so I just pretended to agree." His mother fussed a bit more, telling him to find someone and not to be too old to settle down. He promised he'd try, told her to take care of herself and to spend money when needed, then hung up. He had been afraid to go home when he had nothing to show for himself. Now he had money and success. This trip back would make his parents proud. He sat down beside Zhang Jun. Hu Chan was opposite him, bathed in sunlight. A breeze lifted a few strands of her hair, which brushed her cheek and made her look especially pretty. Lin Yang, your hometown is in Shaanxi, right? She asked. He nodded, smiling. Yeah. I've always wanted to go to Shaanxi, Hu Chan said, clapping her hands in excitement. The scenery, the local customs, so unique. The Qingming holiday is coming up. Why don't a few of us go? You could be our guide since you're from there. Lin Yang took her suggestion lightly but agreed. Sure, I haven't really traveled much outside my hometown either. It'd be a good chance for all of us to see Shaanxi. Hu Chan beamed like a sunflower. Great, it's settled then. I'll start planning the itinerary when I get back. Just thinking about it makes me so excited. Chapter 48, New Features of the Random System. After the barbecue, Lin Yang, Hu Qian, Lin Shi, and Zhang Jun stayed behind to play games, their laughter drifting across the riverbank. Time slipped by unnoticed. Before they knew it, it was past 4 in the afternoon. The once clear sky darkened as a vast gray curtain rolled in. A strong wind picked up, making the canopies and tents along the beach sway. People who had been camping began scrambling to pack and leave before the rain hit. Lin Yang's expression tightened. According to his plan, they were supposed to have dinner there before heading back. That dinner with Hu Qian was meant to satisfy the system's dating condition and trigger a critical hit to unlock new functionality. The sudden weather threatened to ruin that. As he helped pack, he tried to think of a way to still have dinner with Hu Qian. Then he remembered a newly opened hot pot place in Heidong, 9-colored Cloud, famous for its Yunnan mushroom hot pot. It was pricey and hard to get a table, but none of that mattered if it let him dine with Hu Qian and trigger the system. It's almost dinner time. How about I treat everyone to hot pot? There's that new place 9-colored Cloud, he suggested. Zhang Jun's eyes lit up. 9-colored Cloud? The Yunnan mushroom hot pot? I heard it's expensive and you can't get a table. I've wanted to try it forever. Lin Shi nodded. I've heard great things about it. If you're treating, I won't be shy. Hu Qian smiled. If everyone's okay with it, I don't mind. They split into 2 cars, Hu Qian and Lin Shi in one, Lin Yang and Zhang Jun in the other, and drove to the mall where the hot pot restaurant was located. The underground parking was jammed. After some searching, Lin Yang finally found a spot and they took the elevator up. At the restaurant entrance, a long line had already formed. Lin Yang stepped forward and asked a waiter, "How many tables ahead of us for 4 people?" The waiter checked his device. 64 parties ahead of you. The wait is over 4 hours. We recommend coming back another day. 4 hours. Lin Yang frowned but stayed calm. His aim was simply to have dinner with Hu Qian. The exact meal didn't matter. They could go elsewhere if necessary. As he turned to leave, a familiar voice called his name. Lin Yang! He turned. It was Chen Qingqing. Surprised, he asked, "Chen Qingqing, you're here for hot pot too?" She shook her head and smiled with a hint of pride. "This restaurant is mine. Not bad, right?" Lin Yang was surprised. She already owned a high-end seafood buffet, and now a hot pot restaurant too. He realized her family's resources were greater than he'd thought. Chen Qingqing caught him looking at his hands. He hadn't taken a number, and asked, "Why didn't you get in line?" "We'd have to wait 4 to 5 hours. We were thinking of going somewhere else," Lin Yang explained. "Are you here with friends or alone? Bring them in. There are still private rooms," she offered enthusiastically. "Thanks, you're helping me out today," he said. "It's nothing. We're classmates," she replied lightly. Lin Yang stepped back into the crowd, waved to Hu Qian and the others, and called them over. "Come on, we're in." Zhang Jun, puzzled, asked, "Weren't we supposed to queue?" "This place is owned by a classmate. She said we can use a private room," Lin Yang explained. Zhang Jun grinned and gave a thumbs up. "Amazing. Today's our lucky day. High-end places keep private rooms for VIPs. This is the first time I'm getting this treatment." He took out his phone and posted a photo to his social feed. "Thanks to a classmate, we skipped the queue at 9-colored Cloud and got a private room." Likes and comments poured in immediately. "So jealous. Who's your classmate? Let me cling to your coattails." "I've heard average bills there are over 2,000. Only people with backgrounds get private rooms." Even a teasing jab popped up. Zhang Jun basked in the attention. It gave him face. Shi Kong, idly scrolling, liked the post and grew more convinced that Lin Yang's background wasn't ordinary. He'd tried to get close to Lin Yang at the reunion before, but now Zhang Jun seemed to be the one benefiting. Chen Qingqing led them into the best private room. "This is our best room. Take a look at the menu. If you need anything, call Xiao Li," she said, briefly acknowledging Hu Qian and Lin Shi beside Lin Yang. After that brief exchange, Chen Qingqing excused herself, saying she had something to do. She didn't leave right away, though. In the corridor, she leaned against the wall and inhaled deeply, trying to steady the fluttering inside her chest. Since the last time, the time she'd kissed Lin Yang to drive off a suitor, the image replayed in her mind again and again. Being so close to him now, seeing him laugh with Hu Qian and Lin Shi, made something ache in her. Each replay felt like a knife. She asked herself, helplessly, am I really falling for him? Back in the private room, they placed their orders and the dishes arrived shortly. Conversation moved easily between them as they ate. Suddenly, Lin Yang felt the system's prompt ringing in his head. Ding! The conditions for dating and having dinner with the intelligence target have been met, triggering a critical hit. The system will unlock one random new function. Ding! Random system function extracted successfully. The system has added a reset function. Reset. Before reading the received intelligence, you may choose to reset. The amount and value of the intelligence pushed will change randomly. For every 3 cumulative uses, you are guaranteed 1 high-value intelligence. This function can only be used once per week. Frequency changes with system level, weekly, monthly, annually, etc. The system's explanation was thorough, and Lin Yang understood the reset function at a glance. In other words, after receiving intelligence, he could refresh it once. If he was unlucky and got 3 low-value reports, a reset might change that to 10 reports, or even fewer than 3, since the system didn't guarantee a minimum. The reset altered not just quantity but quality. Junk could turn into high-value intel, or the reverse. The outcome was pure luck, but there was a safety. After using reset 3 times, he was guaranteed 1 high-value piece of intelligence. Lin Yang thought the function was worthwhile. Even if his luck was awful, he wouldn't lose too much. There was at least 1 guaranteed high-value item, and it was unlikely the system would fail to push any high-value intelligence in 3 straight weeks. Lin Yang, are you all right? Hu Qian asked, noticing he hadn't touched his chopsticks. Her face was concerned and her voice soft. Lin Yang blinked out of his thoughts and smiled. I'm fine. Everyone dig in. He looked around the restaurant and admitted to himself that the difference between this place and a cheaper hot pot joint was striking. Every ingredient looked as if it had been picked that morning, fresh, pristine. Eating it felt like an experience. Top-tier ingredients really were something else. Coupled with the elegant, upscale setting, the meal was expensive but worth it. No wonder a hot pot that averaged over 2,000 yuan per person drew such a crowd. Rich people weren't foolish. They put their money where value was. He'd once agreed with the idea that the wealthy were wasteful, paying 100 yuan for something that cost 1 yuan elsewhere. But after trying it himself, he could see the difference. The item that was 1 yuan per caddy at the wet market really wasn't the same as the one that cost 100 at a high-end store. Likewise, the 2,000 yuan per person hot pot was in a completely different league from ordinary places. Now that he could easily afford it, why deprive himself? Lin Yang, Hu Qian, Lin Shi, and Zhang Jun relaxed and enjoyed the meal, their laughter filling the private room. The bill came to nearly 10,000 yuan. After lingering a while, they prepared to leave. Lin Yang had meant to find Chen Qingqing to thank her in person for the VIP treatment, but the waiter told him she had already left. He felt a twinge of regret and resolved to thank her another time. At the restaurant entrance, the line was still long. One sharp-eyed, chubby girl spotted Lin Yang and nudged her friend. Look him? He came later than us, but he's already finished and leaving. Did he have a reservation? Her friend guessed. No, the girl said confidently. This place doesn't take reservations. I saw him ask the waiter how long the wait was. Then how did he get in? Cut in line? Buy a number? The chubby girl lifted her chin. Neither. He was invited in by the boss. High-end places keep private rooms for important guests. I got that treatment once when I went with my aunt's husband. Her friend's eyes widened. Your aunt's husband is the chairman of Dajia Group. Maybe that young man is a chairman too, or a rich second generation with powerful backing. She watched Lin Yang go, eyes sparkling. Whatever he is, he'd be the perfect boyfriend, good-looking, fit, with status and money. Yeah, the girl sighed. Why is life so unfair? It opens a window for some and a whole door for others. The four of them took the elevator down to the parking garage. Lin Yang and Hu Qian each drove off in their own cars. Lin Shi and Zhang Jun rode with Hu Qian since they lived in the same community. When Lin Yang got home, he washed up and lay on his bed, planning the week ahead. First, Foodie Battery stock would yield eightfold profits next month, an arrangement already in the hands of his stock advisor, Hu Qian. Second, on Wednesday afternoon, he needed to be at Binjiang Park. Billionaire Chen Zhengguo would suffer a sudden heart attack and fall. Helping him could earn Chen's favor. Third, the Maybach purchased from the dealership and the whole Refund 1, Compensate 3 issue could be set in motion as soon as he had the green ownership certificate. Fourth, the Jinling Community Demolition Plan would be announced on Friday. Old Wang would probably stir up trouble, so Lin Yang needed to prepare a response. Finally, there would be heavy rain over the weekend causing widespread flooding, something else to get ready for. Satisfied with his list, he fell asleep. Monday morning, 9 o'clock. Sunlight slanted across Manager Hu's desk at Xingcheng Securities. Hu Qian sat poised behind it, gently swirling her coffee. The aroma drifted across the office as she waited calmly for the market to open 9:15. A sharp knock broke the quiet. "Please come in," she called. Her assistant, Xiao Lu, burst in, breathless and pale. "Manager Hu, it's bad." "Bad how?" Hu Qian set her cup down. "News just broke that Foodie Battery covered up a laboratory fire. It's going to hit the stock." Xiao Lu's voice trembled. A few drops of coffee sloshed onto the desk, but Hu Qian hardly noticed. A cold premonition settled in her stomach. "Thankfully, you heard it before the open. There's still time to change course." Hu Qian knew Foodie Battery's background well. An old, poorly equipped battery factory struggling to survive. It had no competitive edge. Yet Lin Yang had insisted she go all in and buy the stock. He'd already deposited 90 million yuan into the account, a huge sum. If it went wrong, tens of millions could be gone. She dialed his number with shaking hands. Lin Yang answered quickly. "Lin Yang, Foodie Battery has a major problem. It's about to affect the stock. Do you still want to buy?" "Follow the original plan. Go all in," he replied. Hu Qian's palms went slick. "Please reconsider. This is a huge amount. If it drops, the loss would be disastrous." "I've thought it through. Execute the plan. Operate with confidence." He hung up. She was left staring at the receiver, heart hammering. Lin Yang was stubborn once he'd decided, but this decision terrified her. She forced herself to analyze every angle: financials, market share, industry competition, technological prospects. There were no bright spots. The scandal only darkened Foodie Battery's outlook. At 9:15, the market opened. Foodie Battery hit limit down at the opening bell, down 20% from the previous trading day. Chapter 50. Assets increased by 40% in 1 second. Foodie Battery opening at the limit down wasn't a surprise to Hu Qian. What surprised her was why Lin Yang insisted on buying the stock. Staring at the red numbers sliding lower, she felt her stomach drop. In her head, she heard Lin Yang's resolute voice, "Buy in at full position, as planned." Doubts and fear fought for dominance. She tried to persuade him to change his mind, but Lin Yang didn't waver. 90 million yuan was an enormous sum. A wrong move now could be catastrophic. Reason screamed that buying Foodie Battery in this situation was like flying into a fire. Still, Lin Yang's decision had already been made, and she felt pushed along by his certainty. "Lin Yang, what are you thinking?" Hu Qian whispered, confusion and alarm in her eyes. She drew a deep breath, trying to steady her trembling fingers on the keyboard. After a moment, she set her jaw and made a choice. If Lin Yang was that determined, she would follow his instructions, even if it meant walking toward an abyss. She turned to her assistant, Xiao Liu. "Prepare to buy Foodie Battery at full position. Do it quickly." Xiao Liu blinked in surprise, but when he saw the steel in Hu Qian's eyes, he nodded and began to operate. Only the clicks of keyboards filled the office. The tension was thick, like sailors steering through a storm. They didn't know what lay ahead, but they had to press on. At the same time, in Shanghai's financial district, on the top floor of the financial building at Xinji Investment, A carefully orchestrated scheme was unfolding. Investment director Zhang Jiguo sat upright in his bright, spacious office, watching stock data scroll across his monitor with a confident, predatory gleam. Shinji Investment was a heavyweight in the financial world, with deep capital and a top-tier investment team. Zhang held in his hands a top-secret piece of information he believed would shake the market. Foodie Battery had supposedly developed a solid-state battery and was about to begin mass production. Solid-state batteries, the kind of breakthrough that could rewrite the energy landscape, would, he believed, make Foodie the world leader in power batteries and send revenues skyrocketing. The potential profits had him salivating. So he'd plotted. Zhang's team had fed a story that Foodie Battery was concealing a lab fire to sow panic and push the stock to the limit down. The plan was simple. Panic would trigger sell-offs. He would buy those shares cheaply. Then when the real positive news broke, the price would surge and Shinji would reap massive gains. At first, everything went his way. Foodie opened at the limit down. The market panicked and shares flooded the market. Zhang watched sell orders pile up with a smug smile, imagining wealth flowing into his accounts. Soon, all these shares will be mine, he murmured. Then, unexpectedly, a mysterious fund entered the market like a force of nature. It began sweeping up Foodie Battery shares, swallowing the sell orders that had been piling up. Trading volume ballooned and the price started to twitch. Zhang's smile froze. He stared at the screen. "How is this possible?" he barked, disbelief and irritation flashing across his face. He'd spent months preparing every detail. This sudden change threatened to ruin him. He barked orders to his assistant. "Find out whose funds those are. Now!" The office tightened into a flurry of activity. The mysterious buyer only grew faster, gobbling up most of the circulating shares and slowly dragging the price off the limit down. Zhang felt anger like heat in his chest. He'd been about to snatch the prize, and now someone else was stealing it. "We can't let them win." He snapped. In a rash bid to reclaim control, he gave a striking order. "Buy all the circulating shares of Foodie Battery, now, at any cost." His assistant hesitated. "Mr. Zhang, that will be extremely expensive. There aren't many circulating shares left. The smarter move is to keep selling to create panic, then we can buy back at a lower price." "Enough," Zhang cut him off. He couldn't think strategically in that instant. He was blinded by the need to stop the other fund. "Do it my way." The trading desk moved like a tidal wave. Shinji poured capital into the market with frantic speed. Between the mysterious buyer and Shinji's buying spree, the stock that had been nailed at the limit down snapped back. In the space of a single second, the price flipped from a 20% limit down to a 20% limit up, an instantaneous 40% swing. No matter how many shares went on sale, they were snapped up and the price rocketed. Back in Xing City, in the manager's office at Xingcheng Securities, Huqian sat frozen, staring at the screen. In 1 second, the chart had swung 40%, from a minus 20% limit down to a plus 20% limit up. Lin Yang's 90 million yuan had all been bought at the limit down. By the time the market flipped, that 90 million had become 126 million. "Lin Yang, who are you?" Huqian breathed, curiosity and suspicion warring across her face. She remembered how firmly he'd ordered her to buy. She could not believe he hadn't known something in advance. Chapter 51. A chance to become a billionaire. In Foodie Battery's development history, an accidental fire had become a turning point. 6 months earlier, a blaze had broken out in the company's research lab, but that disaster had unexpectedly led to the successful development of a solid-state battery. For Foodie Battery, the breakthrough was revolutionary. Once mass-produced, the company could rapidly grow into the world's leading power battery manufacturer, with revenues and market value poised to multiply by orders of magnitude. Liu Guojin, deputy factory director at Foodie Battery headquarters, owned 2% of the company, but his ambitions were far larger than his stake. To him, the solid-state battery breakthrough was the opening drumbeat for a feast of wealth, and he wanted the biggest slice. He knew that if mass production began, Foodie's market cap would skyrocket. The temptation made his greed flourish uncontrollably. 2% of the company would no longer be enough. After long deliberation, a bold plan formed in his mind. He decided to use the market reaction to Foodie's imminent mass production as an opportunity to buy up as many circulating shares as possible before the price exploded. To execute it, he recruited Zhang Zhigo, a former classmate who was now a director at an investment company. The two of them hit it off immediately, like sharks sensing blood, and set to work. Their scheme was simple and ruthless. First, they would leak the laboratory fire story to sow panic and push Foodie's stock down to its daily limit. Then they would release some of their own shares to further depress the price, creating a stampede of selling from frightened investors. Once the price had been driven down, Liu and Zhang would swoop in and buy up the panic-sold shares at bargain prices. As long as the solid-state breakthrough remained secret, they believed the plan would be foolproof. After all, Foodie had once been a tiny, nearly failed battery factory. Who would scrutinize it closely? They indulged in fantasies of wealth, seeing huge sums flowing into their pockets, picturing themselves at the top of the financial pyramid. But just as they thought victory was within reach, the market took an unexpected turn. A mysterious fund, appearing out of nowhere, barreled into the game. At first, Liu didn't notice it. He assumed the small price movements were Zhang's doing. Then Zhang called, and the desperation in his voice hit Liu like a sledgehammer. The plan failed. Zhang's voice trembled. Liu felt the blood drop out of his face. He clutched the phone until the veins stood out on his hand and asked hoarsely, "How is that possible? What happened?" In a whirlwind move, the unknown fund had bought 95% of Foodie Battery's 29% publicly circulating shares. That is, some 27.55% of the company, snatching them up before Liu and Zhang could. The massive buying swallowed the selling orders, trading volumes spiked, and the stock began to fluctuate unpredictably. Their carefully orchestrated low-price acquisition evaporated in an instant. They had planned to control the full 29% by buying at low prices. In the end, they managed to acquire less than 1%. The mysterious fund now held the lion's share. The remainder was scattered among retail investors. Though the 27.55% stake the fund bought was at that moment worth only about $100 million, if Foodie rose to become the top-tier company everyone expected, with a market value measured in the hundreds of billions, that stake could be worth tens or even hundreds of billions. Liu tried to picture the sums that had just slipped through his fingers. Each number felt like a blade twisting in his chest. Liu slumped back in his chair, staring at the ceiling, his mind a churn of fury and regret. He couldn't understand who could have so precisely disrupted their plan. Outside, the sun shone as usual, but it couldn't reach him. His office seemed to freeze around him. He clenched his fists until his knuckles whitened and muttered through gritted teeth, "Damn it! Who could have pulled that off?" The fund had come and gone like a ghost, leaving Liu's dream in pieces. Then the news broke. Foodie Battery had officially announced the successful development of the solid-state battery and the start of imminent mass production. The announcement hit the financial markets like a bomb. Investors' appetite for a piece of the future ignited into a feeding frenzy. On exchanges across the country, Foodie's share price rocketed to the daily limit. Screens flashed bright red numbers like fire, and traders' faces reflected shock, regret, and disbelief. Those who had once dismissed Foodie slapped their desks and beat their chests, berating themselves for missing the chance. "If only I'd bought earlier. Even a little. I could have multiplied my money 1,000-fold. One trader lamented, "I missed a shot at becoming a billionaire." In living rooms, offices, and cafes, investors stared at locked limit-up screens. In a small investor chat group, messages scrolled by like winter snow, regret after regret. "How could I be so stupid? I had a chance and I passed on it." "Same here. I thought this stock was a dud. Now I'm doomed to watch others get rich." Some slammed the table, some sat numb and hollow-eyed, some paced and mumbled to themselves, trying to swallow the bitterness. Meanwhile, on a quiet balcony, Lin Yang sipped his tea in the sun. He casually browsed various media reports about Foodie Battery on his phone, scrolling through the wave of comments from people kicking themselves over missed opportunities, comparing it to not buying Bitcoin when it was cheap. He smiled to himself. If he hadn't had his weekly intelligence system, he would probably be sitting in those comment threads, feeling exactly the same regret. Chapter 52, Start Your Own Company, Sing City, Financial Building. Inside the Xingcheng securities office, the atmosphere was unusually tense. What on earth is going on? Hu Qian murmured, eyes tight with confusion and worry. As a senior manager at Xingcheng Securities, she had seen every kind of market swing. She knew how to read rumors, filings, and momentum, but she had never been so baffled by a sudden limit up. She ran through colleagues on the phone, hunting for any clue as to why Foodie Battery had exploded upward today. Every answer was the same. Nobody knew. Could there be some major positive news buried somewhere? She frowned and kept calling. Her concentration was broken by the sound of hurried footsteps. Assistant Xiao Liu burst in without knocking, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Manager Hu, I found the reason for Foodie Battery's limit up," she blurted out. Hu Chan looked up sharply. "What is it?" Xiao Liu could barely contain herself. "They announced they've successfully developed a solid-state battery, and it's about to enter mass production." Hu Qian sucked in a breath. As a seasoned stock consultant, she understood instantly how explosive that news could be. Foodie Battery had once been an obscure, struggling company on the market's margins. News of a successful solid-state battery, ready for mass production, was a seismic development. It would reshape the battery industry and could ripple through the global energy landscape. If Foodie had taken the lead in this technology, it would become the obvious big winner. Lin Yang, who owned a large stake, would see his wealth soar. She forced her voice to stay calm, but couldn't hide the excitement in her eyes. "Xiao Liu, how many shares did we buy in total?" Xiao Liu flipped open a folder and scanned the figures like a machine. "Manager Hu, we bought 90 million yuan worth of Foodie Battery, 25 million shares. Our cost was 3.6 yuan per share. The current price is 5.04 yuan, so the profit is 1.44 yuan per share. Those shares are now worth 126 million yuan. Today's single-day gain is 36 million yuan." Hu Qian felt a swirl of emotions. The numbers were unmistakable. If Lin Yang held on, billionaire status was within reach. She grabbed her phone and dialed him immediately. When he answered, her voice brimmed with excitement. "Lin Yang, congratulations. You picked a huge winner. I really admire your foresight. Who would have expected Foodie Battery to perform like this today?" On the other end, Lin Yang's mouth curved into a small smile. "Just lucky, like a blind cat finding a dead mouse." Hu Chan didn't buy pure luck. "Don't be so modest. How did you pick it? Back then, Foodie was practically unknown. Few people were optimistic." Lin Yang laughed softly, deflecting. He couldn't reveal the real source of his information, so he kept it light. "It just felt right. The name gave me a good vibe." Hu Qian was momentarily speechless at the casual answer, then allowed herself a short laugh. Her tone shifted back to business. "Listen, the news about Foodie's solid-state battery spreading will send its market value skyrocketing. It could very quickly become the world's top power battery company. Your shares will appreciate accordingly, and your capital will grow at an incredible rate. With that level of wealth, it would be hard for me alone to manage everything for you effectively. I'd be overwhelmed. You need a structure, your own company, to manage these assets." Lin Yang listened and agreed inwardly. He knew large fortunes required organization, legal entities, asset management, tax planning, professional teams. The right executive would be decisive. The image of Hu Qian came to him immediately, experienced, responsible, highly capable. He had worked with her and trusted her judgment. "Manager Hu," he said, half joking, half serious, "why don't you consider joining my company? When it's set up, I want you to be the president." Hu Qian blinked. The offer hung in the air. She'd worked hard to become a manager at Sing City's largest securities firm. It was a stable, high-ranking position many envied. Walking away to join a startup that didn't yet exist would be a major risk. "You think that highly of me?" she asked, caught between flattery and caution. "I have complete confidence in you," Lin Yang replied. "Don't rush to refuse. Think it over. Setting up a company will take time, and there's plenty of preliminary work. No need to decide today." "I'll think it over carefully," Hu Chan said after a moment. "Thank you for your trust." Chapter 53. Save People. Lin Yang, Foodie Battery hit its daily limit again today. The current price is 6.05 yuan, with earnings per share of 2.45 yuan. Your 25 million shares are now worth 151.2 million, with a profit of 61.2 million. Hu Chan's voice on the phone brimmed with excitement. In one day, Lin Yang's assets had leapt again. Lin Yang's lips curved. He had expected it, but hearing the numbers still produced an indescribable satisfaction. All right, I know. Keep an eye on it. The wealth surge was only beginning. The next day, Hu Chan called on schedule. Lin Yang, Foodie Battery hit the daily limit again. The price is 7.26 yuan. Earnings per share 3.66 yuan. Your 25 million shares are now worth 181.5 million, a profit of 91.5 million. In 3 days, the profit had already exceeded the principal. The speed of growth was rocket-like and astonishing. Lin Yang's mood, however, remained steady. This was all within his expectations. Still, until he sold the stock, the gains were only numbers on a screen. With Foodie Battery's market value projected to one day exceed $1 trillion, no sane person would sell now. At present, the company's market value was just over 600 million, and his holdings were worth less than 200 million. When the market value grew to $1 trillion, those shares could be worth more than 300 billion. 300 billion versus 200 million, a difference of 1,500 times. He would not touch them until the company had fully grown. Besides, with the intelligence system at his disposal, he had many other ways to make money. The stock would just be sitting there. After lunch, he took a short nap. On waking, his phone rang. A call from the Maybach 4S dealership. "Hello?" he answered. A warm, polite female voice said, "Hello, is this Mr. Lin Yang? This is Xiao Li from the Maybach 4S dealership, Li Yu. The Maybach S580 you bought earlier. Our bank has released the vehicle registration certificate. Would it be convenient for us to deliver it to you in the next couple of days? We can bring the car with it." A few days earlier, he had bought the Maybach specifically to pursue a Refund 1, Compensate 3 claim. The dealership had unilaterally changed the wheel rims, deceiving customers. Lin Yang had gathered evidence when he purchased the car and was waiting for the vehicle registration certificate, so the car would officially be his before he made his move. He knew that even with solid evidence, getting a Refund 1, Compensate 3 outcome was difficult. If it were easy, the viral Mercedes owner sits on hood incident wouldn't have happened. These cases were troublesome, time-consuming, and infuriating. He intended to hand the evidence to a lawyer and let the lawyer handle it, but he had no reliable channel to find a powerful attorney. He had no intention of using lawyers who solicit clients online. Real, capable lawyers were sought after. Finding one would take time. "I'm a bit busy these days. I'll have someone pick up the car from the store in a few days," he said. "Okay, I'll arrange that for you." He hung up and a crucial piece of information flashed through his mind. This afternoon at 3 o'clock, billionaire Chen Zhengguo would suffer a sudden myocardial infarction and collapse while exercising in Binjiang Park. A billionaire, his connections alone were worth a fortune. Befriending him and leveraging those connections would make future moves far smoother. Lin Yang glanced at the clock. It was past 2 and nearly 3. His heart leapt. He didn't hesitate. He rushed downstairs, jumped in his car, floored it, and sped toward Binjiang Park. At the same time, he dialed 120 for emergency services. He had consulted a doctor earlier and knew the best way to handle a sudden myocardial infarction was to get the victim to a hospital as quickly as possible. The closest hospital to Binjiang Park was 4 or 5 kilometers away, and there wouldn't be time without an ambulance already en route. If he called ahead and had an ambulance dispatched, they could arrive faster. But calling an ambulance for a stranger risked exposing the fact that he'd known in advance. He solved that by planning to claim he himself had heart discomfort and needed rescue. Then when the ambulance arrived, they could take Chen Zhengguo to the hospital. Binjiang Park wasn't far from his home. Racing against the clock, he arrived before 3. He jumped out and hurried into the park. A young man of about his age materialized and thrust a brochure at him. "Sir, interested in looking at properties?" Lin Yang had meant to decline, but he was in the market for a house, so he pocketed the brochure and scanned the park for Chen Zhengguo. There were photos of the billionaire online, and Binjiang Park was small with open views, so spotting him shouldn't be hard. An older man jogging ahead caught his eye. Lin focused and felt a surge of relief. Yes, that was him. Just as he stepped up his pace, a shrill cry cut through the air. "Ah!" Someone fainted. The older man clutched his chest, his face contorted in pain, and he collapsed backward hard onto the ground. The crowd froze for a heartbeat, then scattered like startled birds. "I hope this isn't a scam. I can't afford to get involved," a middle-aged man muttered and backed away, eyes wide with caution. "There are too many of those cases these days. Better stay away," an elderly woman said, snatching her grandson and pulling him behind her. A young man glanced at the fallen man, hesitated, and hurried off. Within seconds, a large empty circle formed around the man on the ground. He writhed in pain, utterly alone. Chen Zhengguo's eyes were clouded with despair. His lips trembled as if to call for help, but only a faint sound escaped. Watching everyone avoid him, his heart sank. At that critical moment, Lin Yang arrived with ambulance personnel, carrying a stretcher. Chapter 54. If I had known he was the richest man, I would have saved him. Lin Yang and the paramedics hurriedly lifted Chen Zhengguo onto a stretcher and jogged toward the ambulance. The medics loaded him in with practiced efficiency, and Lin Yang climbed in too, intending to accompany them to the hospital. An elderly woman in the crowd couldn't help but scold him as the crew hooked up monitors and oxygen. "Young man, what are you doing? You're not wearing a white coat. You're not a doctor. Don't go sticking your nose in where it doesn't belong." "I'm not a doctor," Lin Yang said while helping secure the patient. "I just saw someone collapse and wanted to help." The woman waved her hand. "You're too naive. Nowadays, being a good person isn't worth it. Haven't you heard? Someone helped an elderly person and then got sued by the family for compensation. Don't do good deeds that will get you in trouble." An older man nearby agreed. "Exactly. A few days ago, a young man helped an old man who'd fallen. When the old man came to, he said the kid had hit him. The young man couldn't prove otherwise and had to pay tens of thousands to settle. Don't repeat that mistake. Even the richest family couldn't save you from trouble." A young woman joined in, offering the common warning. "Buddy, listen to everyone. You know what they say. If you didn't hit him, why did you call an ambulance?" Lin Yang frowned but didn't stop. "Saving a life comes first," he said quietly, and kept helping the medics do whatever he could. The crowd muttered among themselves, shaking their heads. "Stubborn kid. He's going to suffer for not listening to us. If that old man extorts him, he'll be crying for mercy." Their whispers grated on Lin Yang, but he didn't have time to care. The ambulance sped off with Chen Zhengguo inside. After it pulled away, a man in his 30s in the crowd suddenly slapped his forehead as if remembering something. He fumbled for his phone, opened a browser, and searched. When the photo on the corporate site loaded, his eyes widened and his voice shot up in astonishment. "No way. That's the chairman of Runhe Group." The exclamation drew everyone's attention. "What did you say?" a bespectacled young man asked, hurrying over. The man held up his phone for the crowd to see. "Look, it's him on the company website. That's Runhe's chairman." People clustered around the screen. Recognition spread like wildfire. "It's him. I can't believe I missed the chance to get close to the richest man in town. If I'd known, I'd have helped no matter what." Regret and envy replaced their earlier warnings. A fashionably dressed young man beat his hand against his forehead. "I must have been blind. If I'd helped, maybe he'd have rewarded me. One favor could have changed my life." An elderly woman who had discouraged Lin Yang sighed, shaking her head. "I told that boy not to get involved. If only I'd been braver, maybe my children would have benefited from the connection." Others stamped their feet and complained at their missed opportunity. "If I'd been bold enough to help, I could have been known in the city from now on. It was such a chance. Gone." They all looked at one another with the same thought. That young man had been lucky. He'd saved the richest man in Xing City. His future was bound to be bright. At the hospital, Lin Yang rushed Chen Zhengguo into the emergency room with the medical team and waited outside the closed doors, pacing and fighting the anxiety that tightened his chest. When the doctor finally emerged and removed his mask, he exhaled. "The patient is out of danger," the doctor said. "He'll need to be hospitalized for observation, but he's stable." Relief flooded Lin Yang. He wiped his forehead and went to handle the admission. He paid the deposit without hesitation and filled in Chen Zhengguo's details, including his own contact information. He wanted the patient to be able to find him later. Because he'd used the pretext of heart trouble to get help faster, the staff suggested he be checked as well. Lin Yang agreed and underwent a full exam. When the doctor finished, he smiled. "Your heart is perfectly healthy," he said. "If you feel any discomfort, it's likely stress-related. Try to relax." Lin Yang thanked him and left the hospital. The rescue was over. Now he only needed to wait calmly for whatever might come next. He went back to Binjiang Park to retrieve his car. A group of retirees were still talking about the afternoon's events when he arrived. "Did you hear? The richest man had a medical emergency while jogging here. Nobody wanted to go near him, afraid of getting extorted," a white-haired man said. "I was there," a plump woman chimed in. "A young man saved him." "That boy was so lucky," the thin, tall man added enviously. "If I'd stepped forward, maybe I'd have benefited too." An old man in a floral shirt slapped his thigh. "Binjiang Bay, that riverside luxury complex, was developed by the richest man, right? Maybe he'll reward the young man with a house. One of those costs tens of millions. I couldn't buy one in a lifetime." Lin Yang heard their speculation and couldn't help the small smile that tugged at his mouth. Chapter 55, The High-Spirited Old King. Lin Yang pulled into the residential complex and parked downstairs. As he climbed out of the car, someone shouted his name at the top of their lungs. He turned and saw Old Wang, the same old man who'd sold his house to Lin Yang at a rock-bottom price so he could tip a female streamer. Old Wang's face was positively radiant, full of energy. He looked like he'd been living the high life these last few days. He must have gotten what he wanted and had some deep interaction with his beloved streamer. "Brother Lin Yang, I brought back some wild vegetables from the countryside. Want some?" Old Wang gushed, and before Lin Yang could answer, he rummaged in his bag, pulled out a fistful of ferns, and thrust them into Lin Yang's hand. Lin Yang declined quickly. No, thanks, Old Wang. I don't cook. This would just go to waste." There was a deeper reason for his refusal. Intelligence suggested that once Old Wang learned the housing demolition was imminent, he'd do anything to get the place back. If rebuffed, he'd resort to shameless tactics. Don't be fooled by the friendly act. Old Wang was only pleasant because his interests hadn't been touched yet. The demolition announcement for the neighborhood was due in 2 days, and Lin Yang knew Old Wang might make a desperate move then. He needed to be prepared. He quietly turned on the recorder on his phone and tucked it away, just in case. "Since you don't cook, forget the vegetables. I'll treat you to a meal another day to say thanks," Old Wang said when Lin Yang stayed firm. The old man's face lit up when Lin Yang finally relented a bit. Curiosity got the better of Lin Yang, and he asked, "Old Wang, what's got you so happy?" "Haha, you noticed? It's all thanks to you. If you hadn't bought my old house, I wouldn't have this good fortune. It'd been for sale half a year with no bites. Then you came along and bought it. I used the money to help Yu win her PK against other streamers that night, and she kept her promise to be my girlfriend. We've been on 3 dates in the last half-month." Old Wang's grin widened, his eyes almost disappearing into crescent slits. He went on, completely enraptured. "Brother Lin Yang, you don't know. Yu's words are so sweet. Every time we go out, I feel like I've eaten honey." He blabbered on, clearly enjoying himself, utterly oblivious to the flicker of disdain that crossed Lin Yang's face. "On our last date, she even leaned on my shoulder and said she liked mature, steady men like me. I almost fainted from joy." Old Wang waved his hands and beamed as if replaying the moment in his head. Lin Yang smiled politely, but inwardly thought, this old man is so gullible. A young girl wouldn't genuinely favor an old man. She's after his money. Still, he played along. "Old Wang, you're incredible. Your girlfriend's a young, beautiful internet celebrity. You're a real catch." "Not at all. With your looks in that car, you'll get an even better girlfriend," Old Wang crowed, laughing until the wrinkles around his eyes puckered. "It's settled then. Food's on me next time." Old Wang hurried away. Yu's about to go live. I've got to get back and watch. Help boost her numbers." After seeing Old Wang off, Lin Yang watched his retreating figure with a frown, saved the recording, then went upstairs. He settled onto the balcony. A cool breeze stirred as he lifted his teacup, took a small sip, and let the tea's aroma spread across his tongue. But his mind was on a pressing matter. He needed a reliable lawyer to handle the 4S shop's Return 1 compensate 3 policy. He set the cup down and picked up his phone. Hu-chan, do you know any good lawyers? He messaged. A reply came quickly. I know a few lawyers, but they're all ordinary. Lin Yang's brow tightened. Hu-chan wouldn't cut it. He didn't get discouraged and sent the same question to Zhang Jun. Zhang Jun, do you happen to know any good lawyers? Zhang Jun answered almost immediately. I don't, but Shi Kong has a relative who's supposed to be very good. Ask him. Wait, I'll check for you. Lin Yang sent a grateful, okay, thanks. And then the scene shifted to Shi Kong, who'd been fretting over how to reconnect with Lin Yang after the failed class reunion. The idea that someone might offer an opening still nagged him. Zhang Jun called him. Shi Kong, you have a relative who's a very good lawyer, right? Yeah, a distant cousin. She's had a perfect record over 10 years and now works as a legal supervisor at Runhei Group, Shi Kong replied. He'd been vaguely dismissive in his tone, thinking, what big case could this possibly be? My cousin isn't someone to be handed out for favors. It's not for me, Zhang Jun said. It's for Lin Yang. He asked me about good lawyers, and I thought of your cousin. The moment Shi Kong heard Lin Yang's name, his casualness vanished. Surprise and excitement sharpened his voice. He straightened, suddenly wide awake. Oh, it's Lin Yang. You should have said so sooner. Leave it to me. I'll contact my cousin right away and tell her she absolutely must take the case. The man who had initially been reluctant now did a complete flip. Worrying about reconnecting with Lin Yang had been consuming him, and now this chance had been handed to him. He fumbled through his contacts for his cousin's number, afraid a single second's delay might let the opportunity slip away. He hurriedly told Zhang Jun, tell Lin Yang to rest easy. With me on this, the case will be handled perfectly. My cousin's well known in the field. If she takes it, there won't be any problem, no matter what it is. Chapter 56. Give him a house. Not long after, Lin Yang got a message from Zhang Jun. The lawyer matter had been taken care of, and Shi Kong had agreed to ask his relative for help. Just as he read Zhang Jun's message, a WeChat friend request popped up. He tapped it and saw Shi Kong's name. Lin Yang accepted, and a moment later a message arrived. Lin Yang, I've already spoken with my cousin. When are you free? Let's set a time to meet and go over the details. Not tonight. Tomorrow morning works, Lin Yang replied. Okay, I'll tell my cousin. Oh, and here's her number. With the lawyer issue resolved, a huge weight lifted from Lin Yang's chest. He leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath, but his relief was short-lived. In 2 days, the notice would go out that Jinling community was being demolished. The place he'd lived for over 2 years would no longer be habitable. Buying a house was suddenly urgent. He tried to find the flyer he'd been handed that afternoon, but after ripping through his pockets, he couldn't find it. Frustrated, he opened his laptop and began researching high-end communities in Xing City. After comparing locations, schools, hospitals, malls, and property management, one name kept rising to the top: Binjiang Bay. It was the city's premier development, the best houses, the best facilities, the best property services. No wonder it was considered the finest address in Xing City. If he could get a place there, it would be ideal. The price was steep. Each unit started at around 20 million yuan, but he could afford it. In the ward at Xing City 3rd Hospital, the smell of disinfectant hung in the air. Chen Zhengguo opened his eyes slowly. The bright light made him squint. The steady tick of monitors filled the room. He was alive. Dad, you're awake, Chen Qingqing cried, tears of worry and relief in her voice. Relatives clustered around the bed, faces heavy with concern, filling the room with a warm, anxious bustle. You knew you weren't feeling well, Qingqing said, voice trembling, and you still went out to exercise alone. If someone hadn't seen you and sent you to the hospital. Chen Zhengguo managed a weak smile. I'm fine, don't worry, but thanks to that young man. If not for him, you might never have seen your old man again. Remembering the panic as his condition worsened, Chen Zhengguo felt the old fear rise again. People nearby had stood at a distance, afraid of being implicated or extorted, their faces blank and watchful. He'd thought he'd die alone. Then that young man had stepped in, decisive and fearless, and pulled him through. The kindness felt like a beam of light in the dark. Chen Zhengguo vowed to repay him properly. He noticed a brochure on the floor, the Binjiang Bay promotional booklet he'd been reading earlier. He had a vague memory of it being in the pocket of the man who'd helped him. Of course, the young man had been looking at Binjiang Bei too. Xiao Zhang, Chen Zhengguo said, voice thin but firm. Find out who that young man was. Make sure I thank him properly. Give him a set in Binjiang Bei. Yes, Chairman. Xiao Zhang answered quickly, startled. Binjiang Bei units were the very finest in Xing City, each set worth at least 20 million yuan. To give a whole set to a stranger who'd called an ambulance and saved the chairman's life felt extravagant. Xiao Zhang couldn't help feeling envious and a little guilty that he hadn't been the one at his chairman's side. Qing frowned. Dad, saving a life is something to be grateful for, but giving away a house, isn't that too much? You know the saying, small favors win thanks, big favors breed resentment. Chen Zhengguo shook his head, steadying himself. You don't understand how desperate I was. Everyone else just watched. Only that young man came forward. I trust him. I'll give him not just any house, but the best one, the one across from yours. At that, Qing's face went white. She stepped forward, fists clenched. Dad, you can't. That house is special. It's one of the 2 best in Binjiang Bei, the largest, the best view, and you were saving it for my dowry. You can't give it away to a stranger. Chen Zhengguo's eyes softened, but his resolve didn't waver. He sat up a little and looked at his daughter. Qing, if it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here. A house is nothing compared to a life. We have to repay him, and I think he's a good person. If he's unmarried and ends up living across from you, the proximity could be beneficial. It wouldn't be a bad way for you two to get to know each other. At the mention of anyone else being around, Qing's thoughts grew tense. Since discovering the special feelings that had been growing in her for Lin Yang, she couldn't look kindly on other men. Dad, I'm still young. Don't just push anyone on me, she said, uneasy. Xiao Zhang slipped from the ward and found the on-duty nurse, who directed him to where the young man who'd brought the ambulance was waiting. When he returned, both Chen Zhengguo and Qing had gone quiet and were staring at him. Xiao Zhang, what did you find out? Who is the young man who saved me? Chen Zhengguo asked impatiently. Xiao Zhang bowed slightly. Chairman, I found him. His name is Lin Yang. He said he'd called an ambulance because he felt heart discomfort, and by chance your attack happened then, so the ambulance brought you both to the hospital. Qing's expression froze. When she heard the name, Lin Yang, her face instantly went through a tide of emotions. She blinked, mouth slightly open, eyes wide with surprise and uncertainty. For a long moment she was speechless. Are you sure? She asked finally, voice small. Did you get the name right? No mistake, Xiao Zhang replied. Lin Yang, from Shaanxi. Didn't you stay in Shaanxi for a while when you were little? Do you know him? Qing didn't answer. Her mind was racing. She had never expected the man who'd saved her father to be Lin Yang, the man she'd been thinking about so often lately. Chapter 57. Free of charge for property management, water and electricity. What, Qing, do you know this person? Chen Zhengguo asked, curious why his daughter suddenly seemed so concerned about someone. No, I don't know him, Chen Qing replied automatically. Chen Zhengguo could read his daughter like a book. He'd built this group from nothing. Of course, he could guess her thoughts, but he didn't press her. If she didn't want to say, he wouldn't force it. Xiaozhang, call Shijia in legal right now. Have her draw up a deed of gift. Give the best flat in Binjiang Bei to Lin Yang. Once the paperwork's ready, deliver it to him to sign. We'll talk about everything else after I'm out of the hospital. Yes, Chairman. Assistant Xiao Zhang left the ward at once. He called Shijia and told her to prepare the deed of gift immediately, then rang Lin Yang. In the room, Chen Zhengguo kept watching his daughter. Chen Qing felt her father's gaze on her and shifted awkwardly. Dad, why are you staring at me? You didn't want me to give a house to my lifesaver just now, he said. Why aren't you opposing it now? I'm not trying to be disrespectful, she answered. Since you've decided, arguing won't change anything. I don't want to make you unhappy. Suddenly, she added, by the way, Dad, our community's property management fee is high, 25 yuan per square meter. That flat is 800 square meters. The property fee alone would be 20,000 yuan a month. Aren't you just putting an unnecessary burden on him by giving him that house? Chen Zhengguo smiled when he heard that. She did know him. Of course she did. Otherwise, why would she first oppose giving the house and then worry about exempting him from fees? Ching Ching, didn't you say you didn't know him? And now you're arguing he shouldn't pay fees? When did you get so soft-hearted? Tell me straight, do you like him? Dad, Chen Qing's cheeks flushed bright red. Caught, she stammered. Chen Zhengguo shook his head, smiling. All right, you're not a child anymore. I won't meddle in who you like. We're already the richest family in Qing City. We won't arrange your marriage for money. But remember this, don't reveal who you are until you know his character. I understand, Dad. Good. If you like him, go after him. And tell Uncle Zhang to waive the property management and utility fees for that flat. Thank you, Dad. Chen Qingqing was surprised her father didn't object to her liking a man without backing. She composed herself and accepted it gratefully. After dinner, Lin Yang took a walk, went home, and sat on his balcony scrolling through his phone. An unfamiliar number called. He dismissed it as spam and hung up. The number called again. He hung up again. The third time it rang, he noticed it was a local number and hesitated. Finally, he answered. Hello, may I speak with Mr. Lin Yang? A polite male voice asked. This is he. Who is this? Lin Yang replied. Do you remember saving an old man in Binjiang Park this afternoon? The man asked, sounding grateful. Of course he remembered. He'd been the one to call an ambulance and pay the deposit. Lin smiled inwardly. Yes, I remember. Thanks to you, our chairman is fine, the man said. To express our gratitude, we're preparing to gift you a large flat in Binjiang Bay. The contract will be ready soon. Would it be convenient for you to sign it now so our legal team can meet you? The chairman will also thank you in person when he recovers. Lin Yang could hardly believe it. Give a house, an apartment in Runhe Binjiang Bay, where even the smallest unit cost tens of millions, and for saving an old man, he'd only called an ambulance and paid a 20,000 yuan deposit to the hospital. The reward was more than generous. At that moment, a woman's voice came on the line. It sounded familiar to him, something like Chen Qingqing's voice. Uncle Zhang, my dad said the house given to Lin Yang should be exempt from property management fees and utility fees. Lin Yang's curiosity deepened. He hadn't expected the chairman's family to be involved so quickly. I'm still on the phone, he said. Anytime's fine. How about we meet at Slow Coffee on the first floor of Garden City? All right, the male voice answered. I'll notify our legal team. She should be able to get there in about half an hour. Lin Yang cleaned up and headed out. Garden City was the shopping mall near his building. He crossed the road to Slow Coffee, ordered himself a coffee, and waited. Not long after, a woman in a smart black suit walked into the cafe with poised, confident steps. She carried a simple but high-quality briefcase and scanned the room until her gaze landed on Lin Yang. She walked straight to his table, each step steady and purposeful, drawing a few curious looks as she passed. Mr. Lin Yang, hello? I'm Xie Jia, head of legal affairs at Runhe Group, she said, offering a professional smile and a slight bow. I'm here on behalf of the chairman to sign the deed of gift with you. Please, have a seat, Lin Yang said. Can I get you something to drink? An iced Americano, please. He flagged down a waiter and ordered one. When the iced Americano arrived, Xie Jia took a small sip, then unhurriedly took a document from her briefcase. She laid it on the table and slid it toward him. This is the deed of gift. The chairman intends to gift you an 800-square-meter flat on the 36th floor of Building 2 in Binjiang Bay. The market value is listed at 40 million yuan, and the gift includes lifetime exemption from property management fees and utilities, water, and electricity. She pointed out the key clauses as she spoke. Please review the terms. If there are no issues, sign at the end. I will handle all transfer procedures and have the property deed delivered to you. Chapter 58. Go to see the house. Lin Yang read the gift contract carefully. It was clean and legitimate. He picked up the pen and signed. Afterward, he leaned back in his chair and let his thoughts drift to the days when he worked in the factory. He remembered once fixing a faucet at the factory manager's villa and overhearing the manager complain that running the central air conditioning for one night cost 200 yuan. Over a month, the electricity bill hit 6,000 yuan, more than many people earned in a month. Then, there were the property management fees. He'd heard Binjiang Bay's management was top tier. The staff at Jinling Community were either missing teeth or had white hair. Binjiangbei's property team, by contrast, were recruited from top university flight attendant training programs, physically fit, professionally groomed, and then rigorously trained as community managers. So the fee was high, 25 yuan per square meter. On the smallest, 400 square meter apartment, the monthly fee would be 10,000 yuan, more than 2 months' pay for an ordinary worker. If this had been years ago, given a house like that, he would have had no choice but to sell it. The maintenance, water, and electricity costs alone would have been unaffordable. But things had changed. Stock market returns had transformed his life. He was earning enough in a day to buy another place like this. What surprised him most was that the benefactor had been considerate enough to waive all those fees for life, probably assuming he was just an ordinary man who couldn't afford the upkeep of a luxury home. After the contract was signed, Xijia left. Lin Yang stood, went home, and the next day headed to a cafe near Runhe Group to meet Shi Kong's distant cousin, the well-known lawyer Shi had recommended. He ordered a coffee and took a quiet corner to wait. Before long, a woman in a professional suit appeared. "Hello, are you the client my cousin recommended?" she asked politely. Lin Yang looked up and blurted, surprised, "Lawyer She, what a coincidence." It was the same woman he'd met the night before. "Sometimes fate is just like that," Xijia said with a smile. She had originally thought this would be an ordinary referral, and that meeting the client was just to give Shi Kong face. She hadn't expected this man to be the chairman's savior, the one the chairman had rewarded with Binjiangbei's best apartment and lifetime waivers for property fees and utilities. That changed her impression. She began to take him seriously. "Mr. Lin, what can I help you with?" she asked. "It's like this," Lin Yang said calmly. "I bought a Maybach S580 at the Maybach 4S store. The sticker price was 2.84 million, but the final cost came to 3.489 million. The wheels on the car don't match what was on the configuration sheet. I want a refund and triple compensation for false description." Shijia's expression turned serious. Those luxury brand dealerships have their own legal teams and handle these cases all the time. They're tough opponents. Cases like this aren't rare, but winning them is, usually because the client's evidence isn't a complete chain. "What evidence do you have to show the car doesn't match the description?" "I have the customs declaration, the shipping records, the in-store inspection report, and the car is still at the 4S shop. I haven't picked it up," Lin Yang listed. He had collected everything according to the intelligence he'd been given. Hearing that, Xijia was taken aback. "Mr. Lin, did you study law?" she asked, genuinely surprised. "Even professionally prepared evidence sometimes isn't this complete. With these documents, I'm confident I can get you a refund and triple compensation within a week." Lin Yang smiled. "I studied mechanical engineering, not law. I just looked into these matters online and put the pieces together." "That's a pity. If you'd studied law, you'd make an excellent lawyer," she said earnestly. She genuinely admired his legal awareness despite his background. "About your fees?" Lin Yang asked, pragmatic as ever. "Usually, I charge 10% of the case amount," Xijia began, then considered the strength of his evidence and said, "No, 5%. Lin Yang agreed without hesitation. He understood fees were higher for difficult cases. Since this one looked straightforward and winnable, a lower rate made sense. After they finalized the terms and he handed over the evidence, he left the cafe in high spirits. With Xijia handling it, he was confident the dealership would be forced to compensate. He could leave the legal work to her and wait to collect. From the cafe, he drove to Binjiangbei Community. With Jinling Community slated for demolition, he'd considered buying a house there himself. But after being gifted a large apartment for saving the chairman, he wanted to inspect it first. The flats in Binjiangbei were fully furnished and move-in ready, which would save him a lot of hassle. He planned to take a look, buy a few essentials if everything checked out, and move in. At Zhongnan Automobile World, in the Maybach 4S store, 2 salespeople talked in the office. "Li Rui, your client still hasn't picked up the car?" one asked. "I called him. He said he'll pick it up in a day or 2, Li Rui replied. "Well, the money's already in, so whether he collects it now or later doesn't affect your commission." Li Yue remembered the day she sold that car and felt she'd been lucky. When Lin Yang first came to the store, the other salespeople had been all smiles. She, however, had known Lin Yang's real situation because she was Li Xiaojia's cousin. Li Xiaojia was Lin Yang's ex-girlfriend, and Li Yue had looked down on him as a pauper. She never expected he'd end up buying a nearly 3 million yuan S580 and even choose her as his sales consultant. She'd immediately texted Xiaojia to brag that Lin Yang had bought a luxury car, wondering what they were up to now. She was about to message Xiaojia again when a professionally dressed woman in a black suit carrying a briefcase walked in. "Hello, miss. How can I help you?" Li Yue recognized the woman at once. Designer clothes from head to toe, every piece worth more than several months of Li Yue's salary. This was clearly an important client. She plastered on a wide, practiced smile and rushed forward, practically radiating eagerness to please. "I'm here to pick up the car for Lin Yang. Here's a power of attorney." Shijia handed the document across. Leo took it, checked it carefully, and when she confirmed everything matched, she beamed even wider. "So you're a friend of Mr. Lin's. Please come this way. The car is ready. I'll take you to collect it now." She led Shijia to the new Maybach. At this dealership, every handover was a little ceremony. Flowers dressed the vehicle, there was chilled champagne and trays of refreshments. Liu opened the passenger door for Shijia as if presenting a prize, invited her to sit inside, and launched into a full demonstration of the car's features. Her enthusiasm made it sound like she was talking about her own treasure. She turned on the seat controls, demonstrating the multi-directional adjustments and the 5-mode massage function. "This is great on long drives, really eases fatigue, then moved to the central screen. And this intelligent navigation gives real-time traffic updates so you can plan the best route." As she spoke, she operated the central console with steady hands. For the inspection, she took a flashlight and examined the exterior inch by inch, checking for any scratches and even opening the hood to inspect fluid levels. "Please rest assured, we performed a full inspection before delivery. Everything's perfect," she added, patting her chest with confidence. After the checks, she invited Shijia to stand in front of the car for a photo and handed over the ornate key. Li Yue had a small gift ready too, a customized Maybach keychain. "Congratulations on picking up Mr. Lin Yang's car. I hope he enjoys it," she said, smiling, satisfied that the sale was going smoothly. Shijia's expression changed suddenly. She frowned and pointed at a wheel. "Wait, the wheel hub size isn't right." Li Yue's smile froze. "What do you mean? This Maybach S580 should have 20-inch wheel hubs according to the certificate," Shijia said, producing the paperwork. "But this car has 19-inch hubs." The smile that had been carefully in place for customers slipped from Li Yue's face. Panic flickered in her eyes. Their dealership had a shady habit, taking original parts from imported cars and swapping them for cheaper aftermarket ones, then selling the originals separately. Someone had clearly made a careless swap on this car, and now a customer had noticed. "This? I'll check it right away," Li Yue stammered, voice a little shaky. She hurried off to fetch the store manager. When he arrived and compared the car to the certificate, his expression darkened. "The car's original hubs were 19 inches, he said at first, trying to dismiss it. Shijia produced the customs declaration and held it up. "This car was imported. The declaration lists 20 inches. How could the original be 19? Caught. The manager shifted his story. "I remember now. The hubs were damaged during transport, so we replaced them with 19-inch ones and forgot to switch them back before delivery." That explanation only made Shijia angrier. As a lawyer, she knew how consumer protection law treated fraud. The principle of refund 1, compensate 3 for deceptive practices was clear. The dealership had concealed the true condition of the car and then altered their story when confronted. That looked like deliberate fraud to her. A gross violation of consumers' right to know and to fair trade. "You keep changing your story," she said coolly. "How much credibility do you expect us to give you?" The manager frowned. He'd been selling cars long enough to deal with difficult customers, and he didn't like being bullied. "Madam, the hub size mistake is ours, and we'll fix it. We'll replace the hubs immediately, and to compensate you for the poor experience will include a maintenance package worth 50,000 yuan. Is that acceptable? Shejia laughed softly. In that case, we'll see each other in court. She knew it was pointless to haggle further. The store's legal team was notorious, and getting meaningful compensation through negotiation would be difficult. She climbed into the car and drove it away. Liye stood there, bewildered. Manager, you just let her drive the car away? The manager shrugged, unconcerned. Our legal department is the strongest in the region. We've handled these things for years. Even if it goes to court, we have our ways. Don't worry. Once she was out of sight, Shejia called Lin Yang and gave him a full report. Mr. Lin, the dealership refused to properly compensate us. I've prepared the legal documents. We're going to proceed. I suspect this hub swap is part of a larger pattern. I'm going to have someone investigate the dealership to gather more evidence. All right, Lawyer Shi, Lin Yang said. He was at the entrance of Binjiang Bay when he took the call. Handle it. Let me know if you need anything. He had entrusted the issue to her precisely to avoid getting involved, so he gave her full authority. After they hung up, a man in a suit and polished leather shoes jogged forward. His hair was immaculately combed, his shoes shone, and every detail, from his posture to his tone, screamed professional. Hello, sir. I'm Zhang Human, the butler at Binjiang Bay. How may I help you? Zhang Human's voice was respectful and measured. His smile was polite and controlled, the kind of demeanor that made one feel both welcomed and properly attended to. Chapter 60, Move-In Ready Mansion. Lin Yang nodded slightly. I'm the owner of Building 2, Unit 3601. I'm here to see the apartment. Zhang Humen started. The 36th floor of Building 2 contained one of the two best units in the whole complex, by far the largest and with an excellent river view. He hadn't expected someone so young to own such a place. He half figured this must be another low-profile trust fund kid. He pulled out his phone, opened the internal app, and checked the property information. The owner's name, Lin Yang, popped up. The name hit him like a shock of recognition. There was a Lin Yang from his own village, someone he'd even shared first-grade class with. Zhang remembered that Lin had been top of the class and had gone on to a key university. Later, he'd heard Lin hadn't been doing so well, still living in an old house and without a car. Now, looking at the man in front of him, composed, confident, every gesture refined, Zhang felt sure this wasn't the same struggling neighbor. This presence was earned. He told himself it must be just a coincidence. Hello, sir, he said, switching to full professional politeness. I'll register your license plate so you can access the underground garage. If you're not familiar with the roads here, I can show you the way. Lin Yang nodded. Thank you. Please, lead the way. Drive slowly, I'll lead you. Zhang didn't get into the car. He keyed the plate into the system and jogged ahead to guide the way. Lin Yang followed at a leisurely pace. When they reached the underground garage and Lin pulled into his reserved space, he had a strange flicker of familiarity. He could have sworn Chen Qingqing's car had been parked nearby when he visited her last time. Could his new place be in the same building? Zhang jogged to the elevator, held the door, and gestured for Lin to enter. Mr. Lin, please. Lin stepped in. Zhang released the door and slipped in behind him. In the close quarters of the elevator, Lin scrutinized the attendant. The man wore black-rimmed glasses and had a bright, quick look in his eyes. There was something about him that tugged at a long-buried memory. He leaned forward and whispered, Zhang Human? At the name, Zhang stiffened so suddenly the walkie-talkie in his hand nearly fell. He looked up, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, disbelief and a rush of memories crossing his face. Could it really be? That composed owner was the same kid from the village? After a beat, his features broke into a grin. No way. Lin Yang? Lin Yang from our village? Lin laughed and clapped him familiarly on the shoulder. After all these years, don't tell me you still worry so much. Zhang's pride returned at once. Don't joke. We have to be serious. This is our job. Housekeepers get complaints all the time. Losing a few bucks is one thing. Losing the job is another. I never imagined you'd be living in a place like this. This is one of the best units in Binjiang Bay. You're keeping a low profile, that's for sure. Lin waved it off. Just good fortune. How about you? How's being a housekeeper here? Zhang puffed his chest. Pretty good. It's strict, but the pay and benefits are better than being a flight attendant, and Binjiang Bay is a prestigious community. I'm proud to work here. Then, more softly, but of course, no matter how good my job is, it's nothing compared to a place like yours. Even if I worked here forever, I couldn't afford a house like this. Ding, 36th floor. The elevator doors slid open. Zhang snapped back into his role and led Lin down the corridor to the apartment door. All entry doors in the community have facial recognition, he explained, pointing to the peephole. Just look at the camera and it will scan. Lin leaned in, aligned his face with the peephole. A soft chime, and the door eased open automatically. Zhang stepped forward, pushed the door the rest of the way, and stepped to the side with a warm smile. Mr. Lin, please come in. The apartment took Lin's breath away. The decor was restrained and luxurious, similar to Chen Qingqing's layout, yet with its own character. Large, mirror-smooth marble tiles covered the floor. The ceiling held a glittering crystal chandelier that scattered light like a starry sky. The living room was spacious and bright, opening onto a dramatic 270-degree viewing balcony. From there, the Shang River spread out, the breeze on his face cool and clean, the water glittering gold in the sunlight. The place was fully furnished, soft, genuine leather sofas that enveloped you, a solid wood coffee table with rich grain, but it lacked a few everyday items. A handful of trips to the supermarket and the apartment would be move-in ready. Lin scanned the rooms with satisfaction and turned to Zhang. Thanks for your help. I'm going to the supermarket to pick up some essentials and prepare to move in. Zhang nodded eagerly. Mr. Lin, it's my pleasure. I'll come down to the garage and help you with the car. He followed at a polite distance as Lin made a plan of local shops, explaining which supermarkets stocked the most complete ranges, which had the freshest produce, and which were running discounts. Every recommendation measured and practical. Lin listened, occasionally nodding. At the garage, Lin opened his car and slid in. Zhang closed the door gently and offered a final, polite word. Drive safely, Mr. Lin. If you need anything, call me anytime. Lin rolled down the window, smiled, and thanked him. Then he started the engine and drove out of the community. Zhang had barely returned to his office and taken a sip of water when his phone buzzed. It was his mother. He slid to answer. Son, Qingming is coming up. Are you coming home? Zhang nodded, even though she couldn't see, and said, We have to use compensatory leave for the holidays. I'll come back one day later. His mother's voice hummed with satisfaction. Okay, good. Drive your new car home. Third aunt's kid bought a BMW, some kind of i3, and he's been insufferable about it. Drive your big Mercedes back and put him in his place.